Alright, let's start by opening Photoshop. Click on the Windows menu down on the lower left of your screen. Find the Adobe programs and find Adobe Photoshop. Yours may be a different version than the one you see here, me doing this. While that's loading, we'll also need to have our Google Classroom open. Go to the Introduction to Photoshop, and we need these two assets. These are these two images. Click on the image. We may need to click the three dots and click Open in a new window. From here, I'll find a download button in the top right corner. That's going to download to my Downloads folder. So let's remember where that is. Let's click on the second image. You may see something different here depending what's loaded on your computer, but go to the three dots, click Open in New Window. And then click the Download button again. That again will go in my Download folder. If I click the arrow next to the file there in the bottom bar, I can click on Show in Folder. And you'll see I have the Colony logo and Young Student Thinking About Her Studies. Looks like I have that twice. That'll be just fine. We're going to go ahead and close that because I won't need it. Let's go to Photoshop. Wait for it to draw on the screen. We're going to go to the sections on the left and click Create New. From here, you may need to go to the section at the top tab that says Film and Video, and you want to make sure you choose HD TV 1080. It'll have these numbers, 1920 by 1080. Simply double click on that, and that will open up a blank document. Might take a moment. All right, so by using that 1920 by 1080 selection, we have the correct size for our document. This is what a typical TV screen is. These blue lines that you see form two boxes. They're just guidelines, and they won't print out or with the finished product. They're just there to help guide you in your layout of images and other objects. The inside box is considered your text safe area. So any text we put in should not go beyond that box area because some monitors or TVs may actually crop the edges of an image just because their aspect ratio is a little bit different than the standard 16 by 9 that this is. The outside lines form another box, which is your graphic safe area. Typically, you don't want graphics to go outside of that line unless you intentionally want them to bleed off of the image. And that's okay too sometimes. And we'll be doing a little bit of both. All right, so first thing we're going to do is put a background. Over on the right-hand side, you should have a tab here that says Layers. Make sure that's available. You'll see the background layer. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to put something on top of it. Each image or text box or anything we put on here will appear in another layer. And the layers will be stacked on top of each other. So literally, the background layer will be underneath everything else. So on the left-hand side is our toolbar, and you'll find a box. If you don't have the box, click and hold until you get the drop-out menu, and make sure you choose Rectangle Tool. Up at the top, we have some options for this rectangle. Where it says Fill, this is the color inside the box. I'm going to choose a nice colony green. If you don't see the color you like, you can click on this little icon here with all the colors and choose a colony green inside there. I already have one loaded. Stroke, sometimes it starts off without a stroke, which will be a white box with a red line, but let's go ahead and choose an actual black color, and then the well, actually, on the stroke on this one, we don't even need it. So we'll come back to stroke in a little bit. From here, I can simply draw, whoops, I can now simply draw a box, and I can make this box larger than my actual drawing area, which should be fine. Okay, great. Now I want to build another box, but this time I want to change the colors of it. So what I've done here is I've drawn the box, I've clicked it out of the area. If I still have this box selected, I'll end up making another small box. So now that I select this rectangle again, I'm going to change the fill to white, and here's where I want to change the stroke to black. And now I'm going to build a box. I'm going to start again outside of the actual printed area and draw this box around it so I don't see the black edges on the two sides. Now this line is a little thin. You can kind of see the black line, which is the stroke. I'm going to click the number next to it. There's a little drop down, and I want to make that a little thicker because I want it to look pretty collegiate. And I'll go to about, well, it looks like 18.53, but you know, I just go by eye what that looks like. And then if I want this to be a little bit thicker or thinner, I can move the little, change the size by grabbing these little handles, these little boxes on the sides. All right, when I'm done, I'll hit my enter button, and that will keep that box, set that box in there. Notice now I have three layers. The background layer, which we no longer see. The rectangle layer, that's green, is the next one, and then another rectangle, rectangle 2, is this white layer. And as I click on these layers, you see that their bounding boxes highlight. So that's handy if you need to make changes. Click over in the layers area. All right, I'm always going to go back on the top left corner here to the move tool. That kind of deselects everything else I need. Now it's time to bring in the two images that I downloaded. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go down to Placed. There's two versions of Place. Place is a way to import an image or an object into Photoshop as another layer. The difference between Place, Linked, and Embedded is Linked will actually just look at the file, wherever it is, in this case my downloads file, and look at that and say, oh, use that file and put it in this image. In Embedded, it will actually make a copy of that file and include it in this Photoshop document. Why that's important is in the Placed Linked, if I were to go and delete the original file from the downloads, it would disappear off of my image. Again, if I were to edit that file, you would see the edits appear. In the Embedded, it'll be embedded in this Photoshop file. So for simplicity, I'm going to simply choose Embedded, but either one will work. Now I know that this image is in my Downloads folder, and I'm going to start with the Colony logo number 4. Double click or click the Place button. It's going to come in rather large, so I can grab one of these handles in the corners and shrink it down to a size that looks about right. If your size is a little bigger or smaller than mine, that's okay. And I'm going to move it into this corner where these guidelines are, and it'll sort of snap into place. And that's a real handy feature for getting things lined up. We'll leave it at this size, whatever that happens to be. It looks visually about right to me. And when I'm done, I can hit the Enter button, or at the top, click the check mark, and that will set that in. Let's bring in our other image. File, Embedded, and we have this young student thinking. I'll bring her in. There she is. Took a second to load. And then I'm going to place her so she's sitting right on this black line and snap to this edge. And I think the size that she came in, it looks good to me for now, but you're welcome to make her a little bit smaller if you'd like. All right, I'm going to click the check mark. Now I want to get rid of the white area behind her and under her arm. So there's a little trick with this. She's highlighted in my layers area on the right, and I need to select these white pixels. I won't be able to do it until I make some changes. On the left hand side, you'll see this magic wand tool. If there isn't the magic wand tool, click and hold on the icon that might look like any of these other ones. You might have quick selection or object selection because you can change the tool that's in this area. But we want the magic wand, and that will take whatever color that I'm clicking on, it's going to take a single pixel and say, oh, that's white. And it's going to find all of the white pixels that are touching that and expand a selection. However, when I click, it may not work. In this case, it did. But if yours doesn't, you may need to go to the Layer tab, go down to Smart Objects, and Convert to Smart Object. If it still doesn't work, go down after committing it to a smart object, go to Rasterize and rasterize the smart object. Depending on the version of Photoshop you have, this technique may need to be done or it may not. So these little dots around here, some people call them marching ants. Photoshop calls it the marquee. It says that it's selected this whole area around the white area. And all I have to do is click the delete or backspace button and it should delete. Oop. All right, so here it is. Could not complete your request because the smart object is not directly editable. So this is where we need to go to Layer, go to Smart Objects, click Convert to Smart Object. I click again, hit delete, still can't do it. So I'm going to go to Layer, go down to Rasterize, and I'm going to rasterize to Smart Object. Now I hit delete and all that white disappears. I need to unselect this. So there's two ways of doing this. On the selection menu up at the top, I can click select and go deselect, or the easy way is to click Control D on the keyboard. All right, now I have some white down in this area. I will select that, and since I'm already rasterized, I do notice that my selection selected part of her book, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to go to my move command, and I'm going to try to zoom in on her a little bit. We can go to View, and I'm going to go to 200% and use the slider windows to get a little bit closer. All right, now I want to select just these white pixels, so I will select my magic wand again, and I will click select. But now I have this area that's over selected and I don't want to do that. Up in this top left area, we see these icons. We have the square, we have this two squares, it looks like. We have a square in a kind of a box, and two overlapping. So right now it's just anytime I click, I'll add to this selection, and all of this stuff within the marching ants is selected. I want to deselect something in the selection, and if I click on this gray area, can't quite find it. So we're going to try this again. We're going to go back to select, click. Notice it does sometimes take a little bit of a few tries. And I'm going to click and hold on my magic wand. I'm going to go to this quick selection tool. And with this, whoops, I went the wrong way. I have to subtract. So we got a similar icons up here at the top. I want the one with the minus, and I'm going to carefully paint over these pixels that I want to deselect. And if I can get them deselected without deselecting too much of my original selection, all right, and to test this, I can click delete or backspace, and it doesn't look like things are selected quite well enough. So let's go back to my magic wand, select, and again, I have this problem of selecting too much. So let's see what else we can do. Quick selection tool, but this time I'm going to make the size of this selection tool smaller. Let's see if I can get just a little bit of this done. All right, this is not working out well. Notice we did have a little bit selected here, and you see the green now popping through. So let's try one more. Above my quick selection is the lasso tool. The lasso tool allows me to draw my own lines, and I'll click on this corner, and if I move slowly, it will try to find adjoining pixels around the area I've selected. And I'm holding my mouse down, very carefully drawing. It's a little bit difficult with the mouse. Okay. Whoops. Now I have to do it again because I let go and redid it. All right, when I finish to the end, it'll connect my lasso tool. It's one big selection. Now I'll hit delete. All right, I'm getting closer to this. I'm going to Control D to deselect. Now I still have some of this white in here. I'm not sure I really like that. So in this case, perhaps I can use the eraser tool to come in and simply erase some of the white very carefully. If the eraser tool is too large, up in the top left hand, you can change the size. Right now I'm at 7 pixels and 100% hardness. That should work. And I can very carefully just kind of click through. Now the reason why it's not erasing the green is because I'm only working with this one layer that's highlighted. All right, the little bit of white in here is probably not going to show too well. But I also noticed that up in the top, I have a little bit of white line here, and I'm going to go ahead and try to erase that very carefully. Now if you mess up and accidentally do too much, you simply can go to the edit and go undo eraser, and it'll undo the last bit you did. All right, I like that. What we've done, I'm now going to go back to view, and I want to go back to 100%. And let's take a look. In fact, 100% is probably a little bit still too much. I'm going to go fit on screen. There we go. So now I have my girl and my logo, and I need to add some text. So to add text, I'm going to use the text tool. I'll find T, and once that is clicked, give it a moment to think. I want horizontal text. And I'm going to start at this top line, and I'm going to draw a box in the middle here. Cool. It's going to put some what we call Greek text. It's just placeholder. Notice how it's already highlighted. As long as it's highlighted, I can either hit delete, backspace, or just start typing, and it'll replace that. If I click out of there, then I have to go through the extra steps of re-highlighting it and deleting it. So all I want to write is, in caps, need, and I'm going to do another line, help. I'm going to actually say need homework help, and a question mark. I want my message to be very, very simple. Now this yellow pops out really, really well, but it's not very pretty. So I think I might want to change the color of this. I'm going to highlight this in the box above. I can click the yellow, and I'll move my cursor all the way up to white and go white. Now I have need homework help. If I click the check mark, it sets it in. Now I might like that a little bit, but I think we can improve on this. You'll notice that this text box now has its own layer. Need homework help. Down in the bottom, it says FX. And I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to choose, well, you can play with this. I'm going to choose stroke. That will bring up this box here. And notice on the left-hand side, stroke is selected. I'll move this over. Make sure your preview button is selected, and it put a black border around it. You can try other things if you want to drop shadow in addition or instead, or an outer glow, which sometimes looks kind of neat. You can play with that to your heart's delight. There are settings on the other side, so notice the drop shadow is moving straight down. If you want it to go maybe a little bit at an angle, which I think looks good, you can change that, and you can change the perceived distance of the drop shadow from your text, and I'll move that in a little bit. So feel free to play around with some of these layer styles, and then click OK when done. All right, now furthermore, this font is okay, but I think I can do better. I'm going to highlight this whole thing, and right now mine defaulted to impact. You might have defaulted to something else, and I can scroll through some of this these fonts and see if there's something more interesting. Choose whatever font you like, but it should be a fairly bold and large font, something that's really easy to read. It's okay if, such as this one here, the word doesn't quite fit. I can simply grab the bounding box and stretch it out to make it bigger. If your text isn't centered, you can center it here with the left, right, or centered justification. And when done, click the plus. So that one's not too bad. Need homework help? You can play around with all sorts of different fonts. Just thin ones, skinny ones, ones with what we call serifs sometimes don't work as well. Definitely script. This one would be very difficult to read. We want to find a font that is easy to read, but you also might want something that's kind of fun. And I will leave the font choice up to you. Okay, I will click the check mark to set that again. Click my selection tool to deselect that. And I might even, well, center this down just a little bit. It doesn't have to write on that line, but I think it looks better if it's more centered. All right, let's try another one. We're going to click the text box, and I want to put some text in this white box here. And I want it to be centered to look balanced. So I'm going to click right on this line, and you notice as I draw this box of the little marquee, it snaps to my guidelines. All right, puts my text in there. If I'm not already centered, I want that centered. And it's probably not showing any text because it's too large to fit in here. So to start off with, I'm going to go ahead and shrink my text down. We'll try 48. Probably need to be a little bigger than that. We can adjust it afterward. I haven't deselected it, so I can just start typing. Okay. And I think what I'll do is say NHS can help. And I typed it, but you don't see it, and that's because my text is all white. So I'm going to highlight it, hit the white button, and this time I'll make it black. There we go. Whoops. And you can see I've already made some typographical errors here. So I have my cap locks on. NHS can help. See, who is our NHS advisor? It used to be Mrs. Brunner. If you know who it is, you can put a name down. I don't think I remember who it is this year, so I will just delete the text I don't need, highlight it, and let's make it larger to fill the space. If 72 isn't big enough, I can type a number in, or if I click and drag over this T, I can make it larger. NHS can help. All right, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, and I'm going to make sure that in this drop-down list, bold is available, and I wanted to make italic, and italic isn't available. So, and over on the right-hand side, you'll get the same thing, but bold is the only thing that's available for this particular font. So if I wanted it to be italic, I would have to choose another font, or I believe I can cheat. Let's see. Now, there used to be a fake italic section here, but Photoshop updates so much, they've taken that out. All right, yours might have a fake italic that will italicize. When I'm done, click the check. NHS can help. My move tool, maybe move this so this is centered. I can use my arrow. And there you go. Now, this is not the file you want to submit. The file I want to submit is going to be a JPEG or a PNG file. If I save this file, which I should, File, Save. The first time it'll ask me where do I want to save it, and I'll save it in my student folder. Give it a second to, and I will call it NHS, whoops, NHS help slide. All right, and save it to where you know you can find it. But I now need to export this file. I'm going to go to File, find the export, and the easiest one is Quick Export as PNG. Decide where you want to keep this, and it'll be the same file name you gave, .png. Click Save. Make sure you know where it is, and that's the file you'll turn in. So for the next assignment, you're going to make one of your own. Please use the same template, so it's 1920 by 1080 with the guidelines. Make sure that your text is easy to read, high contrast, And the message is very simple and clear.